New challenge in data architecture. So we'll get into some of the business issues, but we'll also talk a bit about kind of the architectural piece to it. We'll have a nice combination on this session between the why, the business rationale, and the how, the technical implementation. So hopefully everybody will get some kind of value out of it. Feel free to pop some questions in the chat room. You're all used to this kind of format with people kind of looking around, making sure we got everybody can sound good and all the rest of it. But why don't we just kick it off here? If Dan, you were first in the room, so why don't you start with your introduction, then we'll go with Cesar and then Jonathan.
Sure, I'm Dan Everett. I am Vice President of Product and Solution Marketing at Informatica. I've been in the data and analytics space for over 25 years. Happy to be here. Cesar?
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. My name is Cesar. I've been working in data a bit less than Jonathan, around 22 years from now, and always involved in data, from any single angle, from governance, from BI, from analytics, from architecture, from any single angle, Right now, I'm the global data responsible in Jacob Home and Sons group, And well, happy to be here to have a great discussion. Dan?
Okay, I think Cesar, you inverted a bit the names. So I'm Jonathan, and
sorry,
no problem.
Oh my
no
God.
problem. So, hi everyone. I'm Jonathan. I'm VP in Information Management and Enterprise Integration Center of Excellence at Radisson Hotel Group. So before that, my career has been mainly in the IT area for almost 20 years now, and the last 10 years around data. I've been working in different sectors. In the logistics, probably is the most relevant where I was leading the Center of Excellence for Information Management within DHL. Now, 6 months in Radisson is quite new in the role, but very exciting challenges in this sector as well.
I can just imagine, Jonathan, there's some challenges in your sector. I know we'd love to hear about kind of the impact on of the pandemic on your business, how data is kind of supporting it. But before we get to that, why don't we just also go around the room, and if everybody can kind of share the state of MDM at their business today, how master data is, I'll just leave that as an open question, however you want to try and discuss and share with people how important MDM is or where it fits in your organization today. Jonathan, you're welcome to start if you want.
Sure, Scott. Well, I think it's if I'm looking at the hotel and the hospitality in general, I think that master data is really key, definitely in the area of the customer, right? So the customer centric vision, it's so important as we are serving customers through many different channels, right? And the complexity of those channels are making as well the analytics around the customer very, very complex. This is one area I would say. The other area of master data is more classic in our sectors is probably more about the location part. So where we have a distribution of hotels globally, we are opening, closing hotels, but as well we have different so it's different way of structuring the hotel markets, starting from the manager hotel. Of course, we are leading them directly, but then is also franchising hotels where the hotels are changing much more faster. So it's a much more dynamic type of service we are providing. So those two areas, I would say, it's key. The maturity level of master data in Radisson, probably I would say is not starting now, but we are maturing it, and I think it's still quite basic in terms of governance. looking back at where Radisson is coming is a lot of aggregation of different brands, right? Like it's often happening, and this is creating a lot of challenges around this around master data. Also, the system landscape and how the master data are generated today is still very, let's say, it's very decentralized, right? So, and currently we are working as a first step in putting a much more stronger governance around that, or business governance around that, and start centralization of the master data information. So this is probably the first layer, I would say, in the maturity in the maturity journey of master data.
But especially in your category, you've got, as you said, that your customer, making sure that you can identify them across all the different properties, the property domain, the location domain, as you put it, the brands as well that are associated with those different locations. As you mentioned, you operate under a number of different banners, as well as having direct corporate owned and franchise locations. We didn't even delve into the supplier part of it, vendor part of it, supplying all these locations. So very complicated and broad and truly global landscape. So I'm sure there's a lot of exciting things going on there too that we'll circle back on and want to dive in there more. So, but before we do, let's give Cesar some time as well. Cesar, talk about kind of the maturity level of MDM at your organization.
Well, let's say that it's a challenging question, no? Because it depends on the angle, how you look at it. In my organization, it's a global manufacturing company, okay? Actually, we're working in the non-women's industry. Nowadays, with the facial mask, everyone, even though non-women's is not, maybe the word is not well known, but everyone has seen a facial mask and also a baby wipe, so we are doing that kind of stuff. So we are a manufacturing company. We have manufacturing facilities worldwide, and also we have customers worldwide. Okay. So in terms of categories, following the same nomenclature, we have obviously we are delivering to our customers. So customers is a main one, but we also produce products. Okay. So obviously, we need the communication between the product and a customer. And obviously, we need raw materials that are coming from providers. Okay, so that is the triangle, the magic triangle we are playing with. Okay, in that, with that having clear, it's true that right now, well, in our current situation, they are pretty well defined. Okay, the processes. Jonathan was indicating that the process to have it created and so on, right now it's pretty strong in most of them. Okay, actually we are improving one of them, but it's pretty well defined nowadays and so on. And even more, it's true that currently we are implementing an MDM platform. Thanks that we have a master data governance structure already in. Okay, so thanks to that, we can go to the next step to implement an MDM platform to help us manage all the activities. No? So to set up an interconnectivity and interoperability platform to communicate with all sources and allow to every single application within the company consume data whenever they need. Okay, so we are in that process. It's a real challenging path. Okay. But well, we are on it. Actually, later on, we will have some minutes to talk about the experience we are having on it. But let's say that so far so good, but with many things to do.
It's a good, solid vision you've got there, though. The idea that all these different applications, as usual, should be very familiar to everybody, no matter what business they're in. This notion of having that MDM, that common truth platform, be able to feed trusted and quality data to all their applications. So people don't question what they're looking at. They can spend a lot more time using that data and getting value out of it than wondering whether it's right or not. So we are all for that vision. Dan, you have an interesting perspective being a leading MDM provider. Love to have your thoughts as well.
Yeah, so following up on Cesar's point about governance, right, I think that that's really important. I think that, companies, if you look at the history of MDM, right, sort of started out of how do we manage our business processes, order to cash, lead to close, procure to pay, right? And so then what are the core attributes of those master data, right, that we need in the different systems? And then now there was a question that popped up in the chat about, analytics, right? So now people are starting to say, okay, well, I need my core master data, but I want to do digital marketing now, and I want to connect interaction and social data and transaction data, right? And so there's a tendency to have scope creep happen in your definitions of master data, right? Suddenly everything is a master data attribute, and it's really not, right? So I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing right now.
There really is. What do you call what is master data versus not master data is always a challenge for organizations. When I explain it to business folks, I like to bring up the idea of just a basic table. A lot of business people understand tables, right? And rows and columns. People are really good at adding more columns of information, but it's really difficult to align the rows. And I like to focus on the row part. Tell people master data is the row. That's what the column, it's the data that the columns are even about. So maybe a little bit oversimplified, but that's what I do as part of the, my contribution space, to try and boil things down to its simplest level. We got a great comment here from Bernd. It's at the core of the business. You are correct, sir. That's absolutely what it is. In case anybody else hasn't said it yet, master data is the most important data any organization has. All the speakers have already referred to the common nouns of the business: customer, vendor, partner, prospect, brand, service, offering, ingredient, vendor, all those things, those basic nouns of the business. You don't have a business without those things. So I know there's another roundtable going on right now on analytics, and I'd love to pop into that roundtable and remind them there's nothing without us in this roundtable. So just remember that. We're truth first, then meaning. That's always what I like to talk about. So as we move along here, as you think about it, and any of you, please, all three of you jump in wherever you like and build on each other's conversation, but just around the idea of what are some of the basic challenges you have found and are finding in terms of both explaining MDM to stakeholders as well as implementing it across your organization?
Yeah, Scott, maybe I will start again. And I think in Radisson, but as well in my previous experience, I think is really starting from the basics, right? So as you mentioned, so the first thing is explaining the business what master data is. There is still a lot of confusion out there, right? A lot of confusion. So starting from the definition and in a pragmatic way, making examples that explain simply in a simple words. Let's say what a master data is and what is the importance of a master data, right? So this is definitely the first challenge.
So how do you? So Jonathan, so just kind of jumping in there. So how would you articulate that? How would you describe master data if you bumped into your CEO in the elevator? Someday we'll all be in the same place again, but just metaphorically.
Yes, if I have one minute really to explain what master data is, I definitely start where you started. So it's the most important data that we have in our organization, because are the key dimensions, so the key glue that can connect data together, right? So if we don't have this glue, it's very difficult to explain the data, the transactional data that are generated by all the different systems, because each of the system is speaking in a way a different language. So we need these common definitions of those dimensions in order to reconnect the data together. So for me, this is a very, very powerful concept, because most of people, especially at the executive level, understand the data they are receiving and the repo they are receiving, and they understand how this data is connected together, right? So data coming from finance, data coming from operations, and how we can reconnect this data together.
Excellent. Cesar and Dan, want to jump in there? Just kind of.
Yes. In addition to Jonathan, because fully agree with that comment and that approach, and I would say that because I always have like two different description of definitions, no, for master data. On one hand, is master data are the key concept people in a board committee utilize. Okay, because the people talk about how they can sell their products, to whom, to the customers. But they need to know exactly what they are talking about. Okay, so if they know what they are talking about, the key concepts, okay, then later on we can go to the second piece of the definition. No, master data not only is that, are the concepts that are common in every single system within the organization. Okay, and on top of that, we can build whatever you want. We can build analytics, we can build transactions, we can build. I don't really care. Okay,
Right.
but you really need to have the fundamentals about what the heck is master data, what do you really are talking about, and besides that, let's continue. Let's start.
It's so true. I mean, how many meetings do we all get in where we argue about this customer or this hierarchy isn't right or this categorization is different the way I see it versus my partner sees it, or even something as simple as having too many duplicates.
Absolutely.
These are all the basic stuff. I don't know how people run off on AI and ML without knowing that all of this foundation is in place yet. It's a continuing challenge for all of us.
So going back to the original question, one of the key challenges, not only in my current company, also in all other previous ones, is setting up those fantastic key concepts. Okay, that is one of them. But also, I guess that, and something that is really important and is a real challenge, is how to transmit to the rest of the organization that master data is not a commodity for the organization. Okay, master data is not something that the lowest guy in the organization should touch because someone had a fantastic idea to do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment we are able to change that concept and that way of thinking, we will be able to evolve. Okay, so those are my two biggest challenges, and besides that, many others for sure, no? But let's say that those are my two nicest words in my
Okay.
real life.
It's okay. You can take the gloves off later if you like. Dan, you have such an interesting perspective because you work really across so many industries, and being on the provider side, get a glimpse, I think, similar to what I do, of all of these individual companies, but kind of see the trends across them and the commonality. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about any of that.
Yeah, sure. So I think at the end of the day, right, it always comes back to business outcomes. And somebody put in the chat, how would you explain it to your CEO? So if I was in a manufacturing company, right, my simplest explanation would be, look, we buy materials from suppliers, right, to build products on assets or machines that are run by people, right, that we sell through channels to customers that are delivered by partners. And again, the partners deliver materials, right? There's this whole value chain or value cycle, right? And each one of those things I just talked about, materials, suppliers, capital equipment, products, people, customers, channel, it's all master data, right? So without the master data, we can't run our business. So that would be a very simple explanation. The other way I would do it is, I would think about like, okay, if my CFO's biggest issue right now was days sales outstanding, right? And be like, okay, well, what impacts days sales outstanding? Well, product data and inventory, because I have availability to promise wrong and the orders are shipped incomplete. Or in my customer data, I don't have bill to address, I just have ship to address. And the invoices went to the ship to address and it takes a month for it to get to the right department, right? Or I don't have the right tax information on these customers because they're resellers, right? And we shouldn't be charging them tax, right? These are all things that cause invoice disputes, right? And then cause days sales outstanding, right, to go up, which makes the CFO go crazy, right? My working capital has gone down, right? So whatever that business person is, what's their pain point?
There's all these connections between some of those issues that you mentioned and the need for and the value of master data. I think what a lot of us are charged with is explaining how those things are connected, because they're not apparent to the business person. Right? Days outstanding, ship to addresses, senior leadership saying, why are you bothering me with whether we have the right address or not? It's not. It's because it's a symptom of a deeper issue, which is we don't have the proper governance in place, or we haven't set a standard in our organization, and standards are difficult to implement, especially if you don't have higher level senior business support. So we're all challenged with this.
And everybody, I think, intuitively, right? Yes, better data quality is better, right?
Yeah.
But it's sort of like, if it doesn't really get to my particular pain, it's sort of like, yeah, okay, I agree with that, but that doesn't really get them behind, we need to do a data quality or master data management, initiative or project.
I actually find, just in terms of words, I find that quality doesn't really resonate with senior business leadership either, in terms of data quality as being a key objective. I've never met a CEO who says, we need better data quality. They go, we want to be able to provide more value to our relationships, but what is data? Why are you talking to me about that? And what I counsel people on in terms of putting that internal business pitch together is data quality shouldn't be your lead. That's an outcome. Obviously it's important to your team. You should measure it. You should understand it. But if you think that the rest of the organization is going to get excited about data quality as an initiative, I got news for you. It's not going to happen. I mean, if data quality was the right pitch, we wouldn't be having this roundtable. We'd all be, everybody be doing MDM everywhere. So that's just my mini rant on the term quality. I think it doesn't sell well, but anyway.
Yeah, and Scott, let me add one point. Please. Because I think Venkat made a point in his question, right? So in terms of elevation. So Venkat, the reason why I attach to the data itself is because if I'm thinking back to one of the point my previous CEO was doing is that, hey guys, it's not possible that we don't have a firm list, for example, of all the hotels that we are running today. And every time I'm receiving a report and I'm receiving something, the numbers are changing, right? So the immediate answer to this point is that we have list of the hotels. The problem is that CFO has a list, and the marketing team has a different list, and the operational team has a different list. But that's absolutely normal, because for the CFO, the list is coming from the first time that the hotel is generating some invoice. And for the marketing is when they're planning for the hotels to be open. And for the operations is when the operations is coming. So we need a common language in order to read and interpret the data, right, that are coming out of from the report. And this is something that the CEO, in my view, can understand immediately, right, because it's linked to something that is a common challenge for him every day. So make it very tangible to something that is concrete and the base of the business. As Scott said, right, talking about quality of the data is very difficult. Talking about attribute, even worse, right? So let's talk about basics, right? So that's the first thing.
It is. It's always the foundation. And list is a good word to use. I mean, I use it all the time. It's like a big list of things. And if you were, if you and your family were going to go grocery shopping, and the mom made a list of eggs, milk, and bread, and the dad made a list of, beer, soda and milk. And then the son made a list of, chocolate and ice cream and milk. I used the word milk 3 times on purpose. Now, have we mastered our 3 grocery lists? Otherwise, you'd think you'd have to buy milk 3 times. So it's just, any way you can try and make this alive for people to have them realize it's that basic. My tip to folks is, once people really understand, they don't see it, but they feel it when it's wrong. And once they really do start to see it, they'll notice it everywhere. It's that getting people to open their eyes to realize, yes, our basic list of hotels we've got multiple versions of it. So It's a common problem.
The other thing that I've found helpful sometimes, Scott, is if it's a public company, go into your annual report, right, and search for like customer, supply chain, commerce, right? You'll find out like what are at the board level, what are the strategic initiatives, right, that the board is thinking about, right? And then you figure out how does master data tie back to those strategic initiatives.
Excellent tip, Dan. Excellent tip for sure. Cesar, do you have anything? And all the other speakers, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add at any point here, so we won't stand on too much formality. We did have a comment from Valina. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I'm wondering why this is labeled a new challenge, given MDM architecture is a 1999 concept. Okay, good point. I looked at that. We were wondering this title, Master Data, the Source of Truth, ? A new challenge in data architecture. I might take that. I might replace that question mark with an exclamation point, and then put the real question mark at the end there. The source of truth, yes. A new challenge in data architecture? Let's answer that question. So let's delve into that. It is the headline. It is the campaign promise of this session here. Can each of you kind of talk about more a little bit about the implementation side of it, that data architecture element there, what some of the challenges you've had, and please, anybody who's watching, jump in with some comments. We'll keep checking the chat room here. Make sure we can cover everything.
I can jump in.
Please.
Actually, so I'm gonna talk about something later on in the speech. For instance, I can share one of my current challenge I have nowadays. No, well, we are talking about data. We are talking about those problems that actually everyone is thinking that had to be fixed, but if we cannot put the proper measure, they are not going to be done. Okay, what a customer means, what a hotel means, those kind of things. Okay, but obviously, what I guess that when we are talking about architecture, what we are talking about is, okay, we have many different systems, right? We have many different necessities in terms on timing needs. Okay, when do I need to consume some specific data? Okay, those systems are in totally different platforms, right? And not only that, they need customers, for instance, or they need products, or they need hotels. I don't really care what they need, but they need all? Probably not. They will need the hotels open as of next year, or they will need the products that are being sold to these three customers, or the other system that is in another platform will need all the products that are going to be sold to the customers that has been created 3 years ago. So the challenge for master data, from my point of view, is knowing exactly what every single system in the company needs, when needs to be provided, how needs to be provided, and the consumption way to do so, whether it is need to be sent, it is need to be get from, mix, but also that from the looking at how the information is being sourced, right? But we also need to know how the information is going to be provided. Okay, so we also it was already mentioned by one, I don't remember if Dan or Jonathan, how we are creating the data, all of those processes. No, so we need to have clear all of that process. We need to have clear once we get that data, how we can transfer for every single demanding system. Okay, so I guess that the architecture challenge is how to get the data from where and how to source the data to where, okay, and when. That's, from my point of view, the biggest challenge, and obviously everything that happens in the middle. No, but from an architectural standpoint, those two provide answer to those two questions: from where and to where.
The conceptual, version of that is sort of fairly simple to describe. Once you get down to that, physical element, it gets pretty complicated. So,
Absolutely.
Jonathan, can you kind of talk on the architectural side too?
Yeah, I mean, I found interesting this new challenge in the data architecture. I think the basic concept of MDM didn't really change since a while now. So the concept of the consolidation, registry, centralized, coexistence, so the different architecture model. Every company can decide which one is better fitting its own, let's say, situation. What is becoming more and more complex, and my experience is also coming from a maturity that needs to happen, is that there is a disjoint conversation between the enterprise architecture in general and the master and the data architecture, right? So those two words are still not, so the conversation is still not happening in a fluid way, right? So often, the business processes are defined, and with the business processes, all the business application are defined and integrated together in a certain moment of the evolution of the company from an IT standpoint, but also from a business, let's say, modeling standpoint. And then the discussion about how you are using and consuming the data and how you link the data through master data is attached to it, right? And then you find a situation that is already there, right? And the complexity I see that is becoming more and more complex is that the complexity with the digitalization, so the complexity of the ecosystem of the IT solutions are becoming way more complex. And the volume of the data, the diversity of the data is becoming way more complex as well. So before, there was like 3 pillars. And then, it was to adjust, how the conversation between the different applications was happening. Now is not 3 pillars anymore. You have things coming from, the social, things coming from the IoT, things coming from, the standard application and so on. And now the master data, the conversation around master data is becoming really, really complex in my view. And this is the element of the architecture. We need to close, and this is what I'm trying to do in our company now, as like enterprise architecture, data management, this needs to work together. I mean, it needs to sit on the same board, right? And that's I hope it will help, right, in the future.
So right now they're not at your organization. They're still separate.
They are still separate. We have, the data office with the data governance, where we are talking about data modeling. We are talking about master data. Then we talk with the enterprise architecture about, for example, how we can now implement a new master data, and how the new master data will becoming, the centralized place, and how it communicates via API or other messaging. But the two conversations are happening in different moments, right? And are happening in different teams. Now, this idea to put this back together is when a solution is designed with a mindset that the data generated from the solution needs to be digestible, right? And it's not a problem that you need to fix later on.
Dan, I know you probably have plenty of thoughts on this, so.
So I mean, my thoughts are mostly in line with what has already been said. I think that, enterprise architecture has always been, the purpose of it has always been, right, to connect, the IT and the business world, right, and as Cesar said, sort of what's the business process flows, what are the data flows between all these different systems and applications. But let's face it, our landscape is getting more and more complex. I mean, you just, from mergers and acquisitions, I know there's some companies that have upwards of 100, ERP systems, right? While companies start out thinking, well, we'll just consolidate to one S/4HANA instance, for example, right? They start down that path and they realize that that's not going to happen, right? And that's just ERP systems, right? Yeah. Then now you've got people building mobile apps, right? And you've got shadow IT groups or you have business groups buying SaaS applications that IT doesn't know about, right?
With their credit card,
right. and then you've got personal smart devices. My TV is a smart device. My oven is a smart device. Right. So the whole complexity of the landscape has gotten way more complex. And so just understanding, one, where is all the master data located, right, becomes a challenge. Stefan in the chat was talking about breaking down the silos between finance, sales, marketing, et cetera. But where is it all, right? How do we put some governance around it about the core attributes, we talked about this before, that are needed, right, for exchange in our business processes? And then we have all these new use cases, right? We're trying to do, AI models of, propensity to buy and, these other things where, how do we bring in, right, additional data that shouldn't be defined as core master data, but still needs to be linked to the master data. And how do we link a master data, a customer ID, for example, to, a web chat record or a social interaction or all these other things, because we're trying to do profiling and segmentation. So the complexity of what's gone on, I think, is where the challenge is.
Do you feel, all three of you have talked about just the explosive growth of multiple systems, more input. Do you feel that this helps the master data business case, or is it just a lot of noise?
If I can jump here, Scott, I think for me, this is one of the beauty of the master data, right? So in the BI today, there is I hate hearing about shadow analytics or shadow IT. I think today there is a prominent self-service business intelligence coming in, right? So people wants to use the data that are generated from the application. Now, there is always like a conversation between the centralization of something and the decentralization of something, where I think decentralization is an incredible acceleration for business intelligence. However, if you stand with a centralized, well-governed master data, then you can make really sense of everything is happening in a decentralized world. In a very simple way, when people is coming with a dashboard that are missing, the core master data in order to link the data together, this dashboard is really unuseful, right? But if they are taking even the Excel file they have on their laptop, but the numbers are linked back to master data, then I think it has a sense. Maybe is in a specific sphere of the business, but it makes sense, right? And this is why I think master data becomes so fundamental today, much more important even than before. That was only for the information portal or the centralized IT. Now is supporting centralized IT, but I say, guys, if you are building your dashboard on your laptop, use master data as a dimension.
Yeah, the way I explain it, and people in the chat have been asking a lot of what's your elevator pitch? How do you explain it clearly? Another great example is somebody's really focused on dashboards and BI. I remind them those drop-down choices you have, that's master data. Yeah. That's what it is. Okay, category, hierarchy, segmentation. Your pie graphs might look pretty with bad data, but they're just a mess. So anyway, but.
I agree with Jonathan, and I think this again, right? This goes back to the governance of the core master data and the attributes, right? If you've got that right, then whatever else that they want to link to it, right? If I'm doing my SEC reporting, right, I need 100% accuracy, right? But if I'm doing some marketing campaign, they may only need 70% accuracy. They just need the accuracy of the core master data attributes, and everything else that they put around it is, good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You think about the stakes involved with whatever, sending an ad to somebody or a marketing message. The stakes are not quite as high as shipping something to somebody or billing someone. So for sure, got to understand that part of the use case.
And
I'm sorry, John.
I would say, yes, I would say that nowadays, no, in the situation we are totally immersed, no, how many projects we all are hearing about? We are gonna set a fantastic platform because I'm gonna put in place some blockchain for doing and I'm gonna do something that is fantastic. I'm gonna implement a fantastic model that is gonna do some analytics with the IoT that I'm gonna spend 2 millions on putting that. No, I'm gonna do one bigger. It's gonna be I don't care. Okay,
Right.
but come on. What the heck is your governance? Have you simply look at your data, how your data is structured, how your governance is on that data? Are you in the correct moment to put in place that fantastic moment? Or maybe you can wait, you have to wait for 6 months, 1 year, spend 100,000, put in a proper order, and then spend those 3 million.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great point. I like to use food analogies, cooking analogies a lot. And, you're talking about people who are describing cooking a fantastic meal, but they don't seem to care about the quality of their own ingredients. And, you have to link these two things. One thing I'll urge everyone on here, every chance you get to bring up the idea that there's a master data or MDM element to a discussion, take that chance. Be that person in the room who's always going, we're talking about a customer churn model. We got 30% duplicates in our customer file. That's going to be worthless. These, data scientists are going to spend all this time and they're not going to have the right data. Let's fix that foundation first. So I only talk about one thing in case anybody's noticing, but it's always comes back to that. So there's a couple of questions here I'd love to have you guys take a look at. There was, and let me roll back here. There was one about mesh, which is I'm certainly not going to tackle myself, but the idea of, did I lose it here? Robin, I think, asked it. If I lost it, I'll come back to it here.
Where do you see the crossover between the new mesh architecture approach and traditional MDM? Data as a product and distributed domain-specific curation?
That's it. Yeah. I won't tackle that one, so why don't you guys have at it? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think is a bit of my view. Is a bit of chicken and egg, if you want a conversation here. I think the master data has two dimensions. So the dimension of mastering the master data, and then the dimension of distributing the master data, right? So those are I think the two pillars, right? My experience is that while the mastering is happening generally within a specific domain, if I'm reading correctly the question, so in the specific function is where the business understands exactly the definition of that domain, understand exactly how to clean the data related to that domain. Then there is an effort that is a joint effort to link the domains together, so modeling the master data and then distributing the data. And the circle of when I mentioned chicken and egg, so is a kind of you start from some places, then you link them together, then you make sure that the quality is coming, and meanwhile you are distributing the data, and then you identify where the issues are, and you're going back to the quality of the data itself. So it's a kind of cycles that you go through, and meanwhile you're maturing the model and you're maturing the quality, is also helping to mature the quality of the transactional data in the different systems, right? So this is for me is the key essence of this meshing and domain. So separated by domain, but then meshed together, linked together, and distributed to the different systems.
Yeah.
There is maybe Sorry, Cesar.
No, please finish.
I just think, going back to one of the question about the value of the master data, I think this is another value, I think, of the master data. So it's an easy way to understand the quality of the transactions, even though those transactions are managed in a self-service way. So Cesar, you mentioned before, like an IoT project, right? Or so I had experience now together with a colleague working in energy management, right? That's in the hotels is quite important how we are managing, for example, the consumptions within the hotel, or energy consumption, depending on climate measurements, a lot of other inputs, right? And one of the important things is that I spoke with him. If you link it back to the core dimensions, taking the hotel dimensions, then you can also feedback that your report is accurate, 60%, or has 60% of data that are completed and 30% are missing. And you can measure that in a simple way, because you are using the standard list and you're not using of hotels, and you're not using your list of the hotels. So I think this is another way of let's say, measuring the quality in an indirect way via master data.
And also, in that point, about measuring the quality, I would introduce another concept. Fully agree with what you have indicated, Jonathan, because I guess that is the key point. No? But I would add also another variable that I guess that is quite important, and at least from my experience, is missed in most of the organizations. Okay, and is, do you know the cost of your data? Do you know the cost of your good data and bad data? If we know that, okay, we can measure and we can sell internally. We can talk about CFOs without any problem, because we will talk about not about data, not about doing projects work or not. From a soft mode, we will be talking about money, and money, everyone understand. It's a common language, okay, that I don't really care what is behind. But money, I guess that is totally common, okay? And I guess that that is a really, really challenge for everyone working in data, knowing the cost of your data.
Uh-huh.
If we are able to get that, okay, we could be talking in the common language.
Mm-hmm.
And based on that, we can measure the quality and so on, no? But we can measure the quality even in money.
Show me the money. Dan, you have any thoughts on this here? I think I keep seeing that. I think we have about 4 minutes left. I love that counter. No pressure.
No pressure.
Here's a great comment here I just want to highlight from Amir. End users take MDM for granted and don't realize the magic that happens in the background. It's only when things don't look right that they can start to make sense of it. So yeah, absolutely. Now all of a sudden, hey, why do I have all these duplicates? Why isn't this hierarchy correct? Why is my categorization wrong? Why aren't my geographies aligned? Common stuff we see everywhere. So I think, Nicholas, how much time do we have left? I think probably a couple of seconds. I'd love for all our panelists too to just touch briefly on how COVID and the pandemic and master data have been, connected, related, impacted each other at all. What have all of you seen?
I could quickly say that in my case, there has not been any real impact on it. Okay, because it's true that in my business we have focused on the main things to get. We have had some more activity based on our products. Okay, so we have had to take care a lot. We have created many more products, for instance, and so on, due to analysis, and we have to take care about all of those products with more quality, okay? Mm-hmm. But not in terms of additional government or additional policies. Just we didn't have time to that, no? We had to focus on what we already had, right, being sure that it works properly. So we were not able to implement any new thing.
Jonathan, what have you seen in our 3 minutes and 50, 49,
Well,
48 seconds left?
As you said, Scott, no pressure also because our sector has been heavily impacted, of course. So, but I mean, in general, I don't know how much around master data, but definitely around data, right? And the bottom line, I think is there are two dimensions that are very important in the impact of the pandemic. So one is understanding the customer behavior. The other one is optimizing our cost, right? Or cost of operations, if you want. So those are the two big dimensions that we see, and in both the cases, in both the dimensions, data and master data are making the difference, right? So in understanding, for example, how your customers is behaving during the pandemic, we had demand of hundreds of reports about that in the different part of the organizations. And in terms of cost of optimization, really going to understand, how we can optimize the cost of our operations in the different areas of our products and services. And again, here data. So it is a quite solid master data, but as well additional data points that we didn't have before, right? And and that's I think is where really is becoming important, the foundations, right, in order to accelerate there.
Great. Hey Dan, why don't you take literally a minute?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I the old saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. I think that COVID gave us the opportunity to highlight the importance of master data, right? Our forecasting models blew up, right? Our supply chains got disrupted, right? So having good master data, like, okay, who else can I get products from or materials from? What are the actual, not tier 1 suppliers, but the tier 2 suppliers that are having trouble? Being able to realizing that now we need to accelerate our forecasting and scenario modeling, right? Do it much more often, or just getting data into the frontline workers so that they can make decisions on a day-to-day basis, right? Really highlighted the importance of having just that good core master data to make your decisions. So
yeah. I know that the analysts are saw a big uptick in MDM, and people are realizing now if we've got to synchronize and connect with all our employees and all our partners on a much more digital basis, we're going to have the data foundation to make that work. So wrapping up here, I just want to thank everybody, Cesar, Jonathan, and Dan. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Thank everybody in the chat here for hanging in there with us. Master data is your most important data. I want to thank the organizers for having us as well. Follow us all on LinkedIn. Follow me if you can, Scott Taylor, the Data Whisperer. And just remember, good decisions that you make on bad data are just bad decisions you don't know about yet. So have a great rest of the day here. I want to thank everybody for their time and attention. And cheers. I guess we'll take a couple extra seconds.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.